now we're going to have Parul Shah, who has come from the kathak dance tradition. And kathak is a really interesting dance form from North India. And she'll tell us a little bit more about it, both its storytelling and its rhythm. Over to you, Parul.
Hi, Rachel. Namaste, everyone. Very happy Diwali. It is such a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for inviting me, Rachel. Before we go further, I wanted to introduce to you some of my students. Indu, yeah, can speak to the camera.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Navya Gupta. Hi, I'm Tony Agarwal.
So they're going to help us celebrate Diwali. We're going to go on a journey of movement exploration, some traditional, some kind of more creative, but all in the efforts of understanding Diwali and also understanding Indian classical dance and some of the elements that we see in Indian classical dance. So as you probably witnessed with Preeti's presentation in the South Indian classical dance form, lots of very specific hand gestures. These are called mudras. She might have talked to you, and each mudra has a specific meaning. In Kathak, it's slightly different. Kathak comes from the northern parts of India, as Rachel mentioned, and it comes from that word katha, which in Sanskrit means to tell a story. So all Indian classical dance has the base of telling stories based on Hindu mythology. And Diwali is a festival that is probably one of the most popular festivals, not just in India, but in the diaspora. And it is celebrated not just by Hindus, but by Sikhs, by Jains, and also by some Buddhists. So it is something that is very alive, it's very colorful, the celebration, and it's also known as the Festival of Lights. Lights. It is known as a Festival of Lights. And so we're going to touch upon a little bit about why it's called this Festival of Lights, but going back to Kathak and a little bit to tie in what Samir was doing and a little bit about Kathak. So Kathak and the tabla are like this. So even when I do a small dance, I want you to listen to the music because you will hear the drums, and the drums are of the North Indian instrument tabla. So all of the Kathak dancers are also trained as musicians. We can speak all of our bowls, or what we call beats, our compositions, and then we play them out with our feet. So as you can see, I'm wearing So, what do you think I just did with my feet? What did I do? What was I doing with my feet?
She was doing tatkar, which is using our feet to make music.
Exactly. So she gave you an explanation of a Kathak dancer when she told me specifically what we're doing. We were doing a 16-beat rhythm, which is it's the basis of Kathak, but we're creating music. And we have lots and lots of complex rhythms, just like the tabla. So the rhythms are coming from the tabla, and I think Samir was speaking some of them. So we have thousands of compositions. Like, I can speak one for you very quickly. I won't speak the whole thing, but So I didn't speak the whole thing, but as you can see, there are lots of different intricate kinds of beats that we put together in a composition. And as Rachel also said, that it really helps your math skills. In Kathak, it's the same thing. So math is definitely not my forte, and I think it has really helped me build my math skills because everything is within a given time cycle. And we have many, many time cycles. Our most common one is a 16-beat cycle. So in Kathak, it's almost like you're halving your body. As you saw, I'm very grounded from my feet. So a principle in all Indian classical dance is connecting, and all dance actually, the mind, body, and your spirit, right? And it's believed in all the Indian classical dance forms, when all of that is connected, you are realizing your higher self. And what does that sound like? Can anyone tell me what that might sound like? The connection of your mind, body, and your spirit. What other practice has that, aside from Indian classical dance? What do you girls think of when you think of that connection of the mind, body, and spirit?
I would say yoga.
Yes, so yoga. So yoga, again, it's from India. When Indian classical dance evolved, there still is a very strong connection of realizing your higher self. And that is something that's in the philosophy of Indian classical dance and practiced in yoga. So that's just a little bit about the framework of Indian classical dance. And that is one of the main goals of all Indian classical dancers, is realizing your higher self. Now, to talk about Diwali and what is Diwali. So there are a few components to Diwali that is what makes it very significant. And as we mentioned, it is also considered the Festival of Lights. Why don't you guys share with me? What do you think? Why is it called the Festival of Lights? Just speak up so they can hear you.
It's to represent light over darkness.
Excellent. So to represent light over darkness. Great. Anything else?
I think also goodness over evil.
Yeah, it is the triumph over evil. Goodness over evil.
And wisdom over ignorance.
Exactly. So wisdom over ignorance. And in Hindu mythology, we celebrate Diwali with two gods. And do you guys know what that is? The two gods are?
Ganesh and Ram.
Ram, yes, but we welcome these two gods. So Ganesh, who is he brings good fortune, and he is the god of knowledge or wisdom. Lakshmi, there you go. I like that teamwork over there. So Lakshmi, and Lakshmi is the goddess of wealth. So, we celebrate Diwali in many, many ways in the diaspora. There are certain things that I think are very common that people do, and some things that are not. So Diwali can always be a very special way of celebration. You can have something that you do with your family that nobody else does. But some of the very common traits that we do see in Diwali are, do you guys want to mention, how do you celebrate Diwali?
My family puts lanterns around every room of the house, and then
yes. Hold that thought. So these are some lanterns, or these clay diyas that my kids actually made. And Rachel, I think they made these at Asia Society. So we have lots of these from Diwali celebrations. So these are little clay pots that are made, and we put a candle and we light our house. Yes. What else? What are some other things that you do for Diwali?
My family always, on the day of Diwali, we make a rangoli with colors.
Yes.
To decorate the house.
So rangoli it's powder, right? We have a few at home, and they're these beautiful colors, and we have, I think, 3 or 4 at home, and we make it outside of our house, and you can make these really intricate, beautiful designs. Anything else?
We also, in India actually, we do fireworks and firecrackers.
Yep. Yeah, so I remember as a child also celebrating in the evenings we light up these fireworks. Doesn't happen here, but it's a really nice way for kids to celebrate. Also, during Diwali, families get together, family and friends get together. Food is a big thing, sweets, desserts, and sometimes new things. People like to buy things. It's considered a period of renewal. And also I'd like to mention that Diwali generally marks the end of the harvest season. So it always falls during this time, in this country during autumn, so ending of October, early November. So these are some of the intentions of Diwali and how people practice it all over the diaspora. So I wanted to first do a kind of a creative movement exploration with everyone, using some of the concepts of Indian classical dance, and specifically kathak. So either you can follow some of these girls, or you can make your own dance. And the concept is very broad. It's this idea of combating darkness and going into light. Okay, so that can have so many different meanings. What does darkness mean, right? And what we're going to explore is, what does that feel in your body? So the way that I think of darkness might not be the same as the way that you think about it. But what I want you to go to and find a place where it feels maybe unhappy, or something that needs to be kind of opened up or revealed, or maybe a sadness or a shrinking, right? So what do you think when I say, what is it that you feel in your bodies when I say darkness? Concealed, okay, very good. Give me another word.
Very closed off.
Closed off, okay. So we're going to use some of these adjectives, and we're going to start kind of feeling. So I want everyone to come on up, and we're just going to do some kind of simple stretches. We're first going to take our hands out and just rotate them. So in my form, kathak, the form that I practice, we have lots of beautiful, isolated hand movements, right? So very different from what we see in Bharatanatyam, where the lines are much more linear. Kathak is a form that really shows this curved forms and circular. And what I would also like to add, and I think it's a very important point in the form, is that Kathak is not just a Hindu art form. It is just as much, it shares Islamic aesthetics, and it shares Islamic culture and Islamic thought. So it is the only form in India that is what we call a hybrid form. And so even if you look at the way our balancing, our stance in Kathak, it's quite different, right? Because it equally shares Islamic aesthetics and Hindu aesthetics. And so if you see also the way that we use our hands and our feet is very different. All forms have a lot of footwork, but each also has a very distinct vocabulary. So let's go back to rotating our wrist. And I have my students practice it. So I'm turning the other way. Yep. And then take your hands out and just turn the wrist. Good. Now I want you all to take a deep breath. Bend those knees and lift up, and back. And now what we're going to do is, just because I want you to have this feeling of expanding and contracting. So we're going to breathe in, deep breath, and open yourself really wide, and then open up your legs, and then close in. Feel this feeling of being concealed or hidden. And again, open up your frame, and close. And now when we're doing this, think about different shapes. And again, open up really wide, and then close. And try to create different shapes. Good, and just shake it all out. So we are going to work in our choreography. If you don't know what choreography means, it's making dance. So you are all choreographers. You are going to make your own dances. We're going to think about the concept of levels, right? So we have a level, low, middle, and high. Okay, and we're going to think about shapes. We're going to be creating different shapes. So tell me, how would you create, think about it, there's no right or wrong, how would you create a triangle? So graceful. See, I would have just done this. Very nice. Circle. Yeah, so you can see these guys have been trained for a while. Good. And what about square?
I would do something like this.
Okay, so I want you guys to be exploratory with your movement. Think about what makes sense to you, what works in your choreography. It could be anything. A square could be like this. It could be something like this, or it could be kind of a changing square. You can also use your legs, right? So I want you to think outside of the box and be really exploratory with your bodies. So first, we are going to start thinking about maybe a feeling of shrinking. Adjectives are good in choreography. So thinking about shrinking in your body and concealed and hidden, right? So the first place, let's create a shape. Go ahead, guys. I'll also join you. While you're creating this hidden, concealed, shrinking, I want one hand up and then the other down. So come onto the floor, create a shape, and while we create our first movement, I want some kind of a circular pattern. I don't care if it's maybe a circle, the whole circle of your body, or maybe if it's side to side. And we're going to do this, and then you're going to hold. And now we're going to create another shape. Remember, this is a shape of kind of maybe shrinking or concealing. And then again, I want a circular pattern. And now, whatever your legs are, shift it for your last shape. And hold. Now from here, it's going to be this feeling of change, a feeling of maybe rising, of a promise of something different. So what I want first is for everyone to go all the way to the floor, go all the way to the floor and feel with your hands. And why with your hands is because, again, in kathak, we use our hands. So you can do whatever you want, crisscross, but something coming up, up. And we're going to do this 3 times and in different places. So I'm crossing 1, 2, 3, and one more. And 1, 2, 3. Now from here, we're going to actually come on up. So come on up, 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 up. And I want a circular shape now. Create a circular shape. Good. And now from here, this is where we are going to remove those obstacles. Kind of like what Ganesh does, right? Ganesh is supposedly removing those obstacles. So that's what we are going to do. So what could that be? For me, it's kind of like moving those cobwebs, thinking about Halloween, moving those cobwebs. So we're going to do it 3 times, and then I want you to run into another space. So let's go. Think about moving those cobwebs, moving, going through, getting rid of those obstacles, and then run through another space. Run, and go, and move, and remove, and go. Go to another spot. Go, move, get rid of those obstacles. Open up the door. Open up, reveal. Yes, use those knees. Yes, and now discover that lightness. So again, lightness can be many things. For me, I feel it's about discovery and starting anew, right? So what does that look like to you guys? How would you do that? Would it be open in your bodies? Show me. What would that look like?
I think if you were opening something up, I think you would start from low and bring it up to like the high level.
Nice, nice. So your final movement is going to be something of that. So I think what Manu just said is showing one movement that shows this idea of going from darkness into lightness. So show me that one movement. Good. So let me see it again. Start from darkness. Where is your concealed? What is concealed for you guys? Yeah? Yeah. And it does not have to look like anyone. It should be your own. Show me that in your body. Hold it and let's go. And nice. And good. And just because in kathak there are so many turns, right? I want you all to explore these ideas of turns, right? So we have a technique behind those turns, but for everyone, and for our purpose right now, I just want you guys to turn. So we take 3 turns, and we're going to make a pose. Okay, ready? 1, 2, go. And 1, 2, 3, and pose. Nice. Okay, so can we walk through that from the beginning? So where did we start? Down, right? So we have 3 levels, low, middle, and up here. Okay, so show me the concealed pose. Hold it, and I want something circular. Create that circle. Create the circle first in your body. So move the body. Yeah. Duani, you want to move your body in a circular. Yes. Good. Good. Now, another shape. Change your hands. Good. And circle. Change that circle. Nice. And one more. Change the shape. Change the shape. And a circular. Yes. Now slowly show me a rising. Come all the way down first, all the way to the ground. All the way to the ground. Even further. All the way. Get your body all the way to the ground. Yes. Now slowly lift up with your hands. Use those hands. Isolations in your hands. Lift up. Feel those hand movements. Lifting up. Rising. Yes. And now make a circular pose. Good. And now it's going to be the removing of the obstacles. Go through that. Go through it. Yeah, use your space size. Don't feel shy. Come on, go through it. And now run to another space. Go, 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 go. And remove those obstacles. Remove. Are you guys looking upwards or downwards? And one more time, run, go, discover your space. And go, remove, and you can change it up. And lastly, I want to see 3 turns. 3 turns, 1, 2, 3, and a final pose. So sorry, that final pose, I want you to go again from the darkness to the lightness. For your final pose, go down and up. Okay, great. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to put some music with us. So you can also do this with us, right? All right, let's try this. So first, show me your first pose. On the floor. Hold the pose, and circle. Your first circle. Hold. Second circle. Somewhere else. Circle. Different kind of circle. I have changed your legs. Change your legs. Last circle. All the way down. Now slowly lift. Feel it with your palms. Connect to your hands. We're going to go through the obstacles. Get rid of the cobwebs. And lastly, another space. All of that stuff. And 3 spins. 3 spins anywhere you like. Okay, the last pose from darkness. Release the left. Very nice. Great, guys. Okay. So this is somehow ways that we explore our movement to tell stories, right? We can use our hands, our facial expressions, our bodies, and we bring it all together. And something that's also very different from Western thought is that we believe in any classical dance that our face is the most expressive part of our bodies. And we use it. We use it to tell our stories. So now what I want to do with you is I want to do a small dance for you. And it is based on what we just talked a little bit about, Ganesh. So again, who is Ganesh? Why do we celebrate Ganesh? During Diwali, I think we already mentioned it, but someone said it. Somebody?
Ganesh symbolizes wisdom, so we celebrate Ganesh during Diwali to show wisdom over ignorance.
Exactly. Okay, so first I'm going to show you how we do our hands to show Ganesh, right? So just watch and try to guess what are the different parts that I'm showing. So if you don't know, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned, Ganesh is also known as the elephant god, right? And his father is Shiva and his mother is Parvati. And so his story goes that it's a long story, but that Shiva, by mistake, cut off his son's head, not knowing that it's his son. This is an abbreviated story. And then Parvati, his mom, was so upset, and she's like, go find another head for my son. And so the first thing he saw was an elephant. And so he took the elephant's head and put it on his son. And that's a story of Ganesh, but very, very abbreviated. So I am first going to show, and you guys can do this with me. What do you all think this is? So if you think of an elephant, what could this be? It is ears. It is Ganesh's ears, big and floppy, right? And now what do you think this is? So this is the trunk. This is the trunk of Ganesh. And here we are showing Ganesh's really, really large body, right? And lastly, these are his tusks. And what do you think I'm doing here? This is the way an elephant would walk. And of course, there are many different kinds of gaits that you can show, but generally an elephant is pretty heavy, very large animal, right? And they have these beautiful ways of walking. And you guys can also play around with this. So quickly, we are going to share with you how to do each movement, right? So first, let's start with our feet. Well, you know what? Actually, let's first, I'm going to do the dance so you can see what it looks like. And then these girls and I will kind of teach you how to do the Ganesh. So let me just get the music. Okay. So that was a invocation to Lord Ganesh. So we are hoping to show you how we do Ganesh, right? So Diwali, show me how the first movement we do.
So the first movement shows Ganesh's ears. So you go like that, and we bring our hands out, and then we bring them back.
Good. So again, do the isolations. You see how soft we keep our hands. So do you see? It's this kind of emotion. Yes. Go ahead. And what do we do with our feet?
So you bring them front, and then you bring them back.
Okay, so let's all try that. So for right now, let's take right foot forward and forward. Back, forward, and back. Okay, now what is next?
The next part is for showing his trunk. So we make kind of a fist with our right hand, and we move it along with our body like this.
Lovely. So when Ava was doing this, she used, which one?
Right hand.
So she used her right hand, right? She made a fist with it. And again, the same idea. This is why we warmed up our wrists. We are using the wrist to create kind of a shape of the trunk. And now again, you can, every elephant has a different trunk, right? This is something that you can play with. Maybe you can look at pictures of elephants and see what the trunk looks like, right? And I'm sure some trunks are longer and shorter and wider and skinnier. Another thing that's really important are these things called the knees, right? So you have to go down in those knees, scoop up, come on around, and then hold the pose, right? So shapes in choreography are really important, right? So the first shape and pose we made is here. And now the second one, after we go down on our knees, is here. Do you see that? Do you see the bending of the body, the bending of the knee? Great. And next.
The next you show his big belly, which is because he loves to eat.
Mm-hmm.
So you take your hands from the back, and then you kind of tie a little knot in there.
Nice. Great. So again, Ganesh is huge. He is big. So we show a really big body, right? But if you're not showing Ganesh, and if you're showing an elephant, your elephant might not be that large. So it's really, again, it's up to you. But for now, because we are showing Ganesh, we're going to show a large body, huge. And hold. And then Ganesh does wear the string around him. So we're going to create that string and make a knot. Okay, so let's all do that again. Go ahead. Very good. Now, lastly, why don't you, go ahead.
Okay, so the last one we're going to show his tusks. So we're going to take our two index fingers and we're going to plunge down and then back up.
Nice. So again, knees, right? Hands out here and scoop down. Scoop. Right? So what is this kind of thing we're doing with our body? Kind of like this undulation with our back. You see that? You can even do it with your hands. Up. Try that and up. Yeah. So let's try this and go. Down and up. Got to do one more time. Nice. Now the last thing is how we walk. So in kathak we show lots of beautiful gaits. That means different kinds of walk. So that. Or we have, you guys know how to do it with me? Stop, hey, up, hey, stop, hey, up, hey. Or we have walk like this, slower, over, and over, sinking in. So again, this is now kind of like the elephant, right? So the idea is shifting the weight from one leg to another. So let's try that together. Put all of the weight into your left foot. Lift up that right, place it down. All of that weight into the right. Let's sink in like an elephant, really heavy. And then lift up and over. Feel the weight of it. Let your body go down. Feel that groundedness, that heaviness, and then lift up again. Over. And again, feel that weightiness. And up. And over. Okay? So let's try that with our tusks. And let's go. Over. Release. Lift up and over. Keep those tusks. And over. Yes. Okay, great. So now we're going to put it all together. We have the ears. And we're swaying back and forth. We've got the trunk. We are using those knees. Huge body. Tie the rope, the string, the tusk. Scoop down, undulate that body, and go from one side To the other side. Feel the weightiness. Shift and shift. Okay, so let's try that. Ready? 5, 6, 7, 8, and years. Go back and forth. And make a pose. Trunk. Make a pose. Very nice. Touch. Undulate that body. Feel it in your spine. Good. And over from one side to the other. Feel that weightiness. Feel like you're grounded and heavy. Over. There you go. Make a pose. Good. Very nice. Thank you so much. So there you go. Celebrating Diwali with kathak and just movement exploration. Thank you guys for being here. It has been such a pleasure to celebrate Diwali with you and talk to you a little bit about kathak and how we can explore movement.
Parul, can I ask you a couple questions?
Of course, of course.
This was just wonderful, and I could really feel the weight and the heaviness of Ganesh.
Yes.
But in the dance form, in kathak, I think that there are some times where the dance doesn't have a story or a meaning, and there are some times where it's really about storytelling. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about the difference.
Yeah. So, I'd like to begin by saying that in all Indian classical dance, we have two aspects. Abinaya, which is facial expressions, and the narrative. And then we have the technique, which is devoid of any story. So that split we see in all Indian classical dance. It's more prevalent and pronounced in kathak because of this shared history. So there was a time when I had said that, there's an Islamic influence to this form. It's not just an influence, it's grounded it is within the form. It is the creator of the form. And, during the period of the Mughals, it's believed that it's suggested that was a time when kathak really flourished in its technique. But because there were these two religions at play, they did not focus on the religious aspect of the form. They focused more on the aesthetics, refining the forms, the technique, right? And because of that, in kathak, I would say, in our repertoire, we have more vocabulary that does not have a specific narrative. We do have all the mythological stories, just like what I have done, but we also have a lot of repertoire, right, that is kind of more about the spirituality, right? There is also suggested that there's a strong Sufi influence in kathak, right? So again, it's more about this connection of your mind, body, and spirit. And
I'm sorry, what is Sufi?
So Sufi is so don't quote me on this, but Sufism is a sect of Islam, right? From my understanding. And in Sufism, there's also the celebration of music and dance. And it's believed also that you can reach that higher level through this transcendental kind of state, right? So maybe some of you have heard of the whirling dervishes. So again, it is suggested. So the whirling dervishes have these turns, these amazing turns, and a part of their practice is they turn for hours on end, and they create these concentric circles. And one hand is up, and the other one I think is on your heart. But it is suggested that in kathak that our turns that we do, right? Do you want to demonstrate some of our turns? You see the ones. So in kathak, our turns are definitely different. They're a lot faster than what we see in the whirling dervishes, but it is suggested that the turns are coming from Sufism. So going back, kathak is sometimes considered to be an amalgamation of many forms, also some folkloric forms of Rajasthani. It is not just a Hindu art form. And I think it's really important to take note.
I mean, what is interesting is the idea that the spirituality is not limited to one religion or another, but that it's about the idea that you can use your dance to communicate both to human beings and, depending on your own beliefs,
Yeah.
to a different kind of divinity.
Absolutely. And I do think, movement in itself carries that, right?
Yeah.
Movement is this connection of the mind and body and your spirit. I think the difference is that in Indian classical dance, it's really talked about, and it's embedded in the philosophy of the dance form. But I think any dance form has that connection, right? I think that is what feels so enriching, right? That's an experience that you really cannot put language to, and that's what makes movement and dance so beautiful.
Dance is very powerful, I agree, and it's very powerful in many cultures.
Yes.
Whether we're talking about Mali in West Africa, or we're talking about tap dance, or we're talking about Balinese dance. Many forms use that, and it's a way of bringing people together and also, showing something else. I have two more questions for you. One is, how did you decide to start studying kathak, and where?
Interesting question. I think this will be interesting for them because, so I am a first generation.
What does that mean?
So I was born and raised in the United States, and my parents are from India. So I love dance. I loved dance since I was a child, and my parents put me in lots of different types of dancing when I was a child. I did a lot of creative movements, and then I actually studied Bharatanatyam, the South Indian form, and then I saw this performance of kathak, and she had this beautiful dress, like mine, but much more elaborate, and she did all these wonderful turns, and I was like, this is what I want to study. So the journey began then, and never did I think I was to become a professional dancer. I did my undergrad in political science. I thought I would go into international relations or law, but then I'm like, this is something that's really unique. This is something that I can offer. I can contribute to this society. I think, because again, what we're talking about, dance is culture. Right. And I think that we need to spread more knowledge about various cultures, not just Indian culture, but various cultures, because it connects people. It allows to find bridges. And that is so important, especially today. We need those connections. We need those bridges. And so I then did my master's in dance, and because I didn't have the knowledge that I needed to of other forms of dance and just pedagogy, and now I'm actually doing my doctoral studies in dance and education, cultural studies. But yeah, so the journey began. It was something that I really loved. I started training in my teens in India, and then throughout, once I graduated high school, I kept going back to India and spending years there. And I am so fortunate to have this amazing guru, Padma Bhushan Kumudini Lakhia, who has been so supportive, and I've invited her here so many times, and I've toured with her in Europe and in India, and she's an amazing woman, and she's just a great person to have as my mentor. She has allowed me to see dance, not just, and this is what I kind of tell them too, is that dance does not just belong in the four walls that you learn. It's not just about the classroom, it's life. Right? And the way that you can, and it's really important that you make that the dance is relevant to you and to your being and to your identity, because it's not just something that was, that's passing down from 1,000 years, but you need to make it that it's accessible to you, it makes sense to you, and is an expression of who you are. And so she was very supportive of that. She's also a pioneer of doing new things with the kathak repertoire. And when she first started that in the 60s and the 70s, she got, there were really bad reviews. Now everyone's kind of following her footsteps. She was just she's a maverick, way before her time. So I'm very fortunate to have her. And she's always been very supportive of all of the work that I do that steps out of the parameters of kathak. But, I feel like it was really important if I wanted to make this my career, that this just needed to expand and really be something about how I can share, my thoughts, the issues that I'm concerned about, and what the beautiful thing about all arts is that it gives you that empathetic lens, right? Reading the newspaper, seeing the news, it doesn't give you that, but the arts does, right? And that is so powerful, because I think when that happens, when you create empathy between people, that's where change can really happen.
So my final question is, you are a dance maker. You are someone who communicates through movement, and you have a particular form that you have really dedicated yourself. So it becomes another language.
Mm-hmm.
But you are also an American dancer.
Mm-hmm.
And you are interpreting this for the current time, the times we live in,
Mm-hmm.
which have been pretty difficult in some ways, after COVID and staying inside.
Yeah.
And the fact that this form has allowed you to say some different things that are specific to your own background.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to talk about, for a minute, you as a dancer, an American dancer who is using this form to communicate, rooted to where you are now.
That's a great question, and these are things I am thinking about as I go towards a dissertation. And so it is, it places me, it locates me in a very interesting location in the United States, and how being in the diaspora and my voice as a South Asian.
For some people may not know that word diaspora. Could you just?
Diaspora is, so the practice of kathak it originates from India, but then I'm practicing it over here. So just like, as I said, in Diwali is from India, but it is being celebrated in the doors.
So in other words, there are many people who have come to this particular land.
Yes.
Which I didn't say, this is the Lenape, the land of the unceded Lenape. So many of the people that now live in the United States have roots that are elsewhere originally, but now those roots are here.
Right.
So the diaspora has to do with people who come maybe generations ago from other places and now have connections that are both here and elsewhere.
Yeah. So I should also say that I am inhabiting the land of the Lenape in Montclair, New Jersey. Going back to your question, it is definitely something that I think is seeped in my work. And as you know, Rachel, my work definitely steps out of the parameters of kathak. I don't necessarily want to call it contemporary, because I think that is a very weighty term. And unfortunately, even I have been told that, you must be trained in a non-Indian form, because, it just, the way you move, it doesn't look like, it looks like it's contemporary, right? And when they say contemporary, they mean that it must be influenced by ballet or modern dance. And so anyway, it just has a lot of issues that were contemporary. But what I am doing is, it's my identity, whether I am in India or in New Zealand or in America. I'm living in 2021, right? And so the way that I am going to represent an Indian woman, a South Asian American woman, is not going to be the same woman who is carrying a pot on her head and going to the river, right? Because I'm just not doing that, right? And also there are a lot more liberties that I have. And then there are also things within, South Asian culture that I fight against, right? That I am trying to shift, that I'm trying to create awareness. There are many, many inequities that exist. And there's a long history in Indian classical dance that it's a patriarchal system. There's a hierarchy, there's casteism. So all of these things, as a practicing artist of that form, that I continue to combat in a sense, right, for it to make my sense. Having said that, I love the dance form, right? And that is why I do it, because I do feel it allows me to grow as a human being. And I do think, again, it's those philosophies that are embedded with the forms. So there's constantly this battle of the two, right? And finding that balance. But I do think that would happen anywhere in the world, right? The stories might be slightly different, being what are the politics, right? What's happening in your place, and what is your experience, right? Two South Asian Americans will have completely different experiences, right? We're not the same just because we're South Asian American. And I think that's the battle that we're having right now, right? Like, don't pigeonhole us. We're not the same. We're all very different. Just like Bharatanatyam and Kathak, not the same. They're Indian classical dances, but so different. And I do hope that the audience today was able to see that as well.
Well, that was beautiful. And I think the very fact that Diwali is about letting the light in, and letting the light in means letting curiosity in and learning to meet each other and move like each other and maybe play rhythms together. So I appreciate you and all four of you for your generosity. Thank you for sharing this with us. We will have this available for people to keep practicing. But I think are there places where if kids wanted to study kathak, they could study here in at least in New York or New Jersey?
Absolutely. So I teach both in New York and New Jersey. They can just look up the Parul Shah Dance Company on Instagram and Facebook.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all. I think we're almost ready for Diwali.
Yes.
And we're really looking forward to seeing your next performance, and hopefully we'll all be in person next time.
That would be wonderful. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Happy Diwali.
Happy Diwali.